If you don't like that I say I'm Jesus, don't listen to anything I teach.
That's right, today I'm taking on Jesus. Well, he's not actually Jesus.
He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy.
If somebody claims to be Jesus and you don't believe them, you shouldn't listen to anything they say, because they would be crazy.
Crazy confirmed.
I am also the man written of in the Bible, known as Jesus Christ. Yes, you heard that correctly. I'm about to explain how I, Tyler Doka, am Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God.
And it won't surprise you that this crazy person thinks that the Earth is a dirt pizza. This video I'm about to show you was recorded multiple years ago, and it was just floating around on YouTube recently. He's talking about Antarctica, and since I've been to Antarctica, I think I'm the perfect person to address this topic.
It's a page from Wikipedia, and it says Antarctic Treaty System. The Antarctic Treaty and related agreements, collectively known as the Antarctic Treaty System, regulate the international relations with respect to Antarctica, Earth's only continent without a native human population. If we're on the Earth and there's just one continent on the bottom, you think we're not going to go to it? You think we're not going to just jump on it and just inhabit it? We're on the Earth. People want to find the bounds of the Earth. They desire to inhabit certain places.
I don't think fake Jesus knows what native population means.
But you can't inhabit something that's just an ice wall. I'm not saying that the ice wall doesn't continue out, because it does. But the reason that this treaty was established, look in the next sentence. It says, for the purpose of the treaty system, Antarctica is defined as the land, as all of the land and ice shelves south of 60-degree latitude.
An ice shelf is ice floating on top of water. It is not an ice wall, so the treaty isn't talking about an ice wall.
The treaty entered into force in 1961 and has 53 parties. 53 countries have agreed to never inhabit Antarctica. Never.
You'd think the all-knowing Jesus would be aware that there are thousands of people on Antarctica. And even over winter, when you can't get in and out of the South Pole Station, there's at least 50 people there all year during the coldest part of the year and many more in the summer. Maybe he's not all-knowing.
It says the treaty sets aside Antarctica as a scientific preserve. What is in Antarctica that needs to be a preserve? Like, what are you preserving? The ice?
There are some unique species of plants and animals in Antarctica, but it's a very delicate environment, so if we were to mess with it much, they may not survive. Also, it's a lot of ice, and it does not thaw, so unlike in other places of the world where you have winter and then it thaws, water washes away, we don't have that in Antarctica. So if something is on the ice, it's going to stay there forever. We don't want that. We don't want to just leave garbage all over the place in Antarctica. Let's keep it clean. Wouldn't that be nice?
We gotta keep this ice here just in case, we ever have global warming. We're gonna save this one place. We're gonna go get our ice from this place. And then it says, a scientific preserve establishes freedom of scientific investigation and bans military activity, except for the U.S., who has all of their military there and protects it with fighter jets. If you go to Antarctica, it's like you flew over the Pentagon. I'm serious. If there's a place, if you just fly to Antarctica, you just don't let anybody know, you're just I'm going to fly to Antarctica, they'll shoot you down.
When I flew to Antarctica, there was nobody shooting us down at all. I was very glad for that. No military presence whatsoever was found while we were flying there. I'll put a link in the description to the entire time lapse of the flight that we took while we were there. Seems this fake Jesus is lying.
Or they'll race you down if you don't stop, because you're going to figure out that there's an end of the Earth. You'll figure that out. They don't want us to know that. And then it says, it says bans military activity. Then it says the treaty was the first arms control agreement established during the Cold War. What else happened during the Cold War was when they were blowing up the fishbowl. Remember Operation Fishbowl? It was all happening at the same time. They're coming together during this time.
Operation Fishbowl was a series of nuclear bomb tests shot from Johnson Island in the northern hemisphere, which was nowhere near Antarctica. And the elevation of these detonations were between 50 and 400 kilometers high. Now, flat earthers say that the sun is 5,000 kilometers high or 3,000 miles high. So the dome has to be significantly higher than 400 kilometers. So it couldn't have been anywhere near what they say the dome is. Unless the dome is now magically lower than the sun, they can't make up their mind at how high the dome is.
The treaty was opened for signature in 1959, officially entered into force in 1961. The original signatories were the 12 countries active in Antarctica, the International Geocentrical Year.
Geophysical year. You'd think Jesus could pronounce that.
Those countries knew that Antarctica was an ice wall. They established this treaty to not let the information get out.
Well, unfortunately, the information did get out still. I went to Antarctica and I saw the sun circle around me for 24 hours a day, including moving right to left. And at local solar midnight, due south of me was the sun. I looked due south 100% away from Australia, which was on the other side of the dirt pizza map that this guy thinks the Earth is. But strangely, the sun was over the ocean near Australia at that very moment. How could that be? Could it have been a reflection off of the firmament that he wants to believe so badly exists? Well, it could not have been a reflection because we took photographs using a solar filter where you can see sunspots very clearly. We compared these sunspots to other photos that people took all around the globe on the same day at the same time and compared them. We found that the sunspots were not reflected at all. They were rotated as the globe predicted, but not reflected as reflecting off of a firmament would mandate.
And now, if you read the last sentence, these countries had established over 50 Antarctic stations for the IGY. The treaty was diplomatic expression of the operational and scientific cooperation of many nations that have been achieved on the ice. So the reason for this Antarctic treaty system is so that the information never gets out that there's an end to the Earth.
Well, you don't need to be fake Jesus to just go and read the treaty where it says freedom of scientific investigation in Antarctica and cooperation toward that end as applied during the International Geophysical Year shall continue, subject to the provision of the present treaty. That means that scientific investigation is allowed. It's specifically why the treaty is there. So go ahead, do that science. Go figure out if there is an ice wall or an end of the Earth.
They don't want you to know that. They don't want you to realize that Antarctica is not a continent to be inhabited. They want you to think that Antarctica is just some scientific region where we're just doing a lot of studies. You know, we're just finding out how cold it can get here. Let's just figure that out first. No, what they want, they don't want you to see the end. They don't want you to see that the world has ends.
So in 1978 to 1980, there was an expedition called the Transglobe Expedition, where a group of people went all the way around the world, both poles, and they tried to stay on both meridians, the prime meridian and the 180 degrees east and west meridian. And they did this successfully. In 1980, they crossed Antarctica, starting at the prime meridian south of South Africa, and they went all the way across to the South Pole and continued to the opposite side on the 180 east and west meridian. There's much documentation of this. There's a website I'll link in the description that has a whole lot of pictures, photographs. You can go look at them yourself. They're freely available for anybody that wants to look at them. So yes, they have done this. And so how could there be an end to the Earth if that's the case? Well, of course, there isn't. It's just a sphere. And this is documentation of it. And, on the other hand, fake Jesus, he just has, things that he says and doesn't back up.
And you can actually do research on other people who have traveled by sea. Like, I'm talking before this military ban.
What does he mean, military ban? Well, we can look at what the Antarctic Treaty actually says about the military. It says, quote, Antarctica shall be used for peaceful purposes only. There shall be prohibited, inter alia, any measures of a military nature such as the establishment of military bases and fortifications, the carrying out of military maneuvers, as well as the testing of any type of weapons. The present treaty shall not prevent the use of military personnel or equipment for scientific research or for any other peaceful purpose. So no, it is not a ban by the military to prevent people from getting there. It's a ban of the military doing military type things in Antarctica. If only fake Jesus had been aware of this and read the treaty.
Where they just say, I traveled around the earth and I could not get past the ice wall. There's papers of people that were actually, trying to find other land, trying to go out and explore in the 1800s and the 1600s. And they literally said that they just came to an ice wall where they literally just had to travel around the whole earth in an ice wall.
Does somebody want to tell them that that's what would happen if it was a continent on the south end of a globe?
And there's people who have tried to fly to Antarctica and they were taken down by the military. All this information is available to you, but look at...
I've searched high and low for this information that's available to me about people getting shot down by the military on the way to Antarctica and have found none. Turns out that fake Jesus is lying here as well.
These are the ice walls that are encasing the earth. Those don't look too small, do they? Why don't you fall off the edge? It's because of these giant ice walls.
Well, except there is no edge, there is no dome, there is no flat earth. He kind of had evidence for it, being a globe, didn't he? Anyway, you may wonder what happened to Flat Earth Fake Jesus after this. Well, he did give this little bit of advice.
If somebody claims to be Jesus and you don't believe them, you shouldn't listen to anything they say, because they would be crazy.
Turns out the people in his church took that advice. There's no more church. They all left. Also, he divorced his wife because, what would Jesus do? And today... Well, I'll tell you in a minute what he's doing today, but first, a little bit ago, he is so full of himself that he thinks, just watch this.
I don't know if you all saw this morning, but there was a worldwide IT outage last night. And if you watched my teaching on Wednesday, I was talking about the phone and how I'd had it for so long and how I wanted to get rid of it because there was so much tied to my phone number. And I was just waiting to reorganize all my accounts onto my new device. So yesterday I grabbed Branimir and Carlo and I said, watch this, I'm gonna take out my SIM card. I put it in an ashtray, I poured some lighter fluid on it, and I lit it on fire. I said, watch what happens. And then I wake up this morning and the whole world shuts down. It's just epic.
So yes, July 19, 2024, there was a global IT outage. And he thinks it's because he burned his SIM card. That's how big his head is. Anyway, what is this guy doing today? Well, after a complete failure at being a pastor, complete failure at being a husband and father, and a complete failure at being fake Jesus, he is now a motorcycle bro. If you find him on Instagram, you'll see that all of his posts, rather than being about being a pious savior of the world, he is instead riding around on a motorcycle with a bunch of other bros. I looked through all of his stunt videos and I was disappointed to find out that he didn't take his bike off any sweet jumps.